That's recorded. So welcome everyone to this DAFT webinar. You're listening to us from the Netherlands. So welcome wherever you are today. As I mentioned, please pop your details in the chat where you are, and we're going to get a little bit interactive in a minute. I'm Julie, and I'm here with Andrea, who is the DAFT Visa holder, and we just want to share a bit more about what we're going to cover this evening. So first of all, let's know in the chat where you are joining from, and are you pre-move, mid-move, or already in the Netherlands? Or is this all completely new to you? Hi, Drew. You could join us.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry about the delay. I had trouble getting into Zoom.
No problem at all. Welcome. We're just asking people to pop in the chat where you're joining from today and whether you're pre-move, mid-move, already in the Netherlands. And please feel free to pop your details if you'd like to connect with others, whether it's LinkedIn or however you'd like to connect. So we're just going to go through the answers. We've got Priyanka, she's already in the Netherlands. Jen McRae, she's in Missouri, USA. Pre-move still a few years out. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can help you with that. And we've got Jen, who's on the line as well. She's in Utrecht, very much here in the Netherlands. To just let you know, this session's about starting over abroad, building a business in the Netherlands, about the professional reinvention, and it's about real life DAFT experiences. We're going to be really open and transparent and a little bit sharing those eek moments, the things that maybe you don't get to read about in glossy articles that's just saying everything's hippy skippy. We're going to share a bit more about the challenges we've had. And just to let you know, we're not legal tax or immigration advisors. We may well have some great contacts for you. So do ask in the chat if you've got something specific. We may be able to point you in the right direction, but that is not our background. I'm just going to have a look at the chat again. So we've got Drew joining us today. He's joining in from St. Paul, Minnesota, the Twin Cities. I was there earlier this year. I went to see my friends in Iowa. Yes. Come on down. What was I doing in Iowa? Well, we'll find out about that another time. Pre-move and certain how far out, and he shared his LinkedIn on there, so do connect. And Jen shared her email as well. Happy to get advice and tips from anyone. Jen, let us know in the chat what specific questions you have. As we said, we're not legal tax immigration, so you don't need to get into too much detail, but we may well have some connections for you. First of all, meet Andrea. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Oh, we're going to pass over. So I'm going to hear more from her.
Alrighty, thanks. So, thank you all for joining today. Screen coming across okay? Wonderful. So I am Andrea, founder of Little Nudge Marketing and DAFT Visa holder. I moved to Utrecht last October with my husband Josh and our dog Frankie. After about 2 weeks, Josh had to return to the US to finish selling off all of our stuff. So that left me alone in a new country for a little over 2 months. Now, of course, whether you're moving across town or across the state or to a new country, it's always going to be hard. So instead of talking about the process and the paperwork and the logistics of this kind of move, I actually want to share with you all tonight a story about my mental health journey. I'm going to share my experiences from the first time I moved to a new city and how that actually prepared me for moving to the Netherlands. Of course, I am not a therapist or a counselor, so I can't provide any kind of professional advice. I can only share my experiences in the hopes that it will help you with your journey. So, take you back in time to the summer of 2007. Uh, Facebook was just starting to blow up. The iPhone had just been launched, and I was an overconfident yet shy 24-year-old who already knew everything. My best friend at the time asked me if I wanted to move into an apartment with her and one of her friends in Chicago. I was ready to move out of my parents' house and looking to experience life outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Uh, I had already been going to school for graphic design, so I thought, sure, I'll move, I'll finish my education at Columbia College Chicago, where my friend had already spent a full academic year. I applied, I got accepted, which was great. Um, at this time, I had also been working at Walgreens, um, and I was able to get a transfer to move to a store in Chicago. So school and work were set. Now, of course, I had no other friends or family in Chicago. So I was completely relying on my friend to help me get settled in and adjust to this new city life. And Chicago was very different from St. Louis. I grew up in the suburbs where everyone drove everywhere and every lawn was perfect. So Chicago was intimidating and awe-inspiring, and there were people just constantly moving. And everything was great at first. We were having house parties, bar hopping, going to concerts, all of that stuff you do in your mid-20s and hope your parents don't find out about. Then the school year started. I was alone in our 1,700 square foot apartment most of the time. My friend and roommate, they already had lives in the city, other places to be, people to see. I had school and I had my job and really bad social anxiety. I never really had a chance to build a new support system. Not that I knew how in the first place. Even the thought of starting a conversation with anyone in class or anywhere was really terrifying to me. I I was convinced that if I approached anyone, some gaping hole would open up in front of me and eat my face. Uh, of course, being a broke art student, I didn't explore the city much either. Not to mention that in Chicago, if you don't know where you're going, you can end up in a really dangerous situation. Even the areas I went to, which I knew to be safe, I still had times where I was followed on the train or off the train, um, catcalled constantly, had to pull pepper spray out a couple of times and threaten people with it. Um, so by Halloween, I started feeling really lonely, really isolated, and I was starting to spiral. And there was one particular event that made it a lot worse. One night, it was really cold and rainy because it was in the fall. I had gotten off my blue line stop after work, and had just finished crossing the street. I mean, 1 foot on the curb. And I heard a thud and a scream behind me. A man had just been hit by a car. I, of course, dialed 911 immediately, and he cried for help and managed to get up. He got to my side of the street just as a bus had pulled up. And this man got on the bus while I was still on the call with the emergency services. The bus driver was horrified. I said, don't go anywhere. The police are on their way. So emergency services arrived. They got the man off the bus. And, while I was talking to one of the officers giving a statement, another woman came up who had witnessed the event and said that she tried to get a license plate, but she didn't want to follow too much or too closely because she was worried about getting shot. So after I finished my statement, got home to my empty apartment, and I called my mom, shaking, crying, telling her everything that happened. And she really tried to reassure me, that you're okay. You didn't get hurt. And all I could say was that it could have been me. You know, my mom eventually calmed me down. Um, but to my knowledge, they never caught the person who hit this man. I went to work the next day and had to act like everything was fine. Um, I was working a lot at that time because I had actually gotten promoted to assistant store manager, which was great to have the extra income, but calling off for any reason just wasn't allowed. Um, at that time at Walgreens, if you were a manager, you were required to work 44 hours a week. Now, I had been going to school part-time while I was working, and while my manager was fine working around that schedule, I already knew I wasn't going to be re-enrolling for the spring semester, um, really because the student loans I had been approved for just weren't going to cover my tuition. So I pretty much had enough to pay my bills, and that was about it. Um, so that was still pretty early in the fall semester that I knew this. Um, then then Thanksgiving, things really started getting hard. Um, I'm fairly close with my family, and we would always spend Thanksgiving together. And this was the first year that I was alone for it. So my roommate and my friend, they were off with their families. Um, so I made myself a meal, best I could do. But of course, no one knew that the fried chicken I made was delicious. So um, Christmas was pretty much the same by myself again. Um, my my birthday that year, that was also really hard. Because my birthday falls in between Christmas and New Year's. That year, the only people who remembered my birthday were my parents and my siblings. So by this point, I stopped talking to people. I didn't want to bother anyone. Um, I felt like I would be in the way or no one would even care. I felt like my friend abandoned me, but I couldn't tell her why I was pushing her away. Um, Even when she tried to connect and get me to talk, I couldn't. So she eventually stopped trying. I would lie to my parents and tell them I was fine. I didn't know how to deal with what I was feeling. Um, I would cry myself to sleep a lot. Alcohol was a pretty good sedative. Severe exhaustion would definitely help me sleep. But of course, that made it harder the next day to do my job. And then I started having really intrusive thoughts about causing myself physical pain just to feel something other than sadness. I think the really odd thing about spiraling is that you don't always recognize it's happening. So I didn't think to try and get help. I did have enough sense to make the decision to go back home to St. Louis. After I made that decision, there were three things that really kept me going until my lease was up. You know, the knowledge that I was going home in a few months, cooking, and of all things, the show Supernatural. Um, Cooking gave me a way out of my own head and helped me focus on something other than the negative emotions that were always around me. And the only thing I was really excited for was to see what Sam and Dean got up to next. Um, it actually took me a good 6 to 8 months to recover once I got back home to St. Louis. So we're gonna fast forward 20 years, giving away my age. Um, so when I told my mom that we would be moving and that I'd be alone for a few months, I was not surprised when she looked at me deep in the eyes, furrowed brow, tears starting to build. Are you going to be okay by yourself for that long? And I get why she was concerned. I mean, once again, here I am moving to a place where, aside from my husband, I have no close friends, no family, and no idea what I was doing. So, our last few weeks in the US and the first couple of weeks in the Netherlands were really a blur. Josh was still working in the US at the time, and I had been laid off a few months earlier, which was fine because we had already decided we were moving. Um, but I had spent most of that time, packing, preparing my business, starting to network, getting the dog ready to fly, and basically closing up our lives in the US. So when we finally got to Utrecht, we started running around again, getting apartment keys, furniture, living necessities, and getting registered. It's a lot. Um, and then the day after we finally finished all of our registrations and applied for our IDs, Josh had to go back to the US. Um, so here I was, just a girl and a dog and a business to start, and and a plan on how not to spiral into loneliness and depression again. It- Unlike my time in Chicago, I came to Utrecht having learned some really important things about myself. Number one was I needed to overcome my social anxiety. And I needed to learn how to not only be honest with myself, but honest with the people who care about me. Uh, I needed to be okay with the fact that I don't know everything, and that it's okay to be scared. But more than anything, I need to enjoy it. So, as far as, coping and adjusting, one of the biggest things that really helped me was actually just creating a schedule. Um, Having a four-legged alarm clock makes that really easy. So, my day did and still does start with a cold, wet nose and a paw in the face. Um, so, my routine's simple. It's, I get up, I shower, I dress, I take the dog for a walk, and then we both end up eating breakfast. We don't eat the same thing. I mean, as much as he'd like to eat my food. But that 2 hour routine, it really gives the day structure, not just for me, but for the dog, obviously. But it also just kind of gives you purpose and a place to start for the day. And of course, he he is a German Shepherd Stafford Staffordshire Terrier mix, so he has energy for 3 days all in one. So he needs a lot of attention throughout the day. Um, but it gives me an opportunity to still spend time on my business and spend time just getting used to everything here. I really enjoy walking around the neighborhood with him. Not just my neighborhood, but in general. Over Halloween weekend this year, we went to Dom Tower and took a tour, a walking tour, and learned a lot about the history of Utrecht. And it also gave me a chance to talk to other humans in real life. Um, and it's really nice being in a place where the American hustle culture doesn't exist. Like, it's okay to take an hour-long break in the afternoon to walk your dog. No one cares. So, um, but yeah, slowing down and appreciating what's around, it's only part of it. Like I mentioned, I had to get over my social anxiety. Um, and for me, I actually know the exact moment my anxiety started. Um, I was in the second grade and I had just moved to St. Louis from Dallas, where I was born, and I had a thick East Texas drawl. I sounded like George Bush, junior and senior. Um, and there was a girl sitting next to me in class, and I asked her something. I have no idea what it was, but she ignored my question and instead said, "You talk funny." As a child who's already shy, those three little words just completely destroyed my ability to communicate with strangers. I was 41 years old before I came to that realization and to understand the impact it had on me. It made me believe that everyone was going to judge me, scrutinize me, or dismiss me simply for opening my mouth. And recognizing that the way this one girl treated me was not how all people were going to treat me, plus moving across an ocean, uh, really changed my perspective and my approach to trying to talk to people. Um, and, obviously, it helped me understand that in order to grow my business and to make friends, I would have to go talk to people. And I would really have to put that girl in the past where she belongs. I still have social anxiety. I've just gotten better at managing it. So, um, but before we moved, I started looking for networking opportunities, and just ways to meet people. Facebook ended up being the best place for me to find new friends and new colleagues and new leads. Um, the Julie's group, Buzz Business Networking, was the first group I sat in on. I actually attended my first session while I was packing. And then roughly 3 weeks after landing in the Netherlands, I sat in my very first networking session as a small business owner. And it was not scary. Um, and that does I do need to give a lot of credit to Julie because she does create a very warm environment. And she always brings really amazing speakers to her events. And during this particular event, the speaker shared a story about herself and her past and why it's important to be authentic and be vulnerable. Now, I don't know if it was that everything I had done and been through in the last few months had finally hit me, or if the weight of everything came off. But I started crying. Not cute, single tear and a sniffle, like full, ugly, crying, runny nose, I need a tissue right now crying. Um, but as I quickly learned, there were a lot of other people in the group who either had been going through the same things or had been there already and were just there to give me a hug and tell me it's okay. And nobody judged, which was amazing. And that's when I knew I was going to be okay. So, along with attending various networking events, I really tried to connect with other expats through Facebook groups. Um, I've I've really had a great time, not only meeting other Americans who have moved here, but people from all over the world. Um, you know, being able to share those immigrant experiences, I think, is part of what is helping me to find a new community. Whether it's, meeting someone for coffee or lunch, or, just wandering around finding something new, it helps make it feel like home. Um, and for me, um, I like to play pool. I haven't found a whole lot of pool playing opportunities here yet, but I'm still hoping to. But, depending on what your interests are, you can almost always find something to do. Sites like Eventbrite, Meetup, those kind of things. I know there's some community forums and places as well. Um, but that's how you can start getting out there to meet new people and get that community back that you're giving up after leaving the one you had. So obviously you want to build that new community, but you don't want to ignore the one that you left behind. Um, so that also became a challenge that I needed to adjust to, because when I was in Chicago, I never reached out to anyone. Um, this time, obviously, I have a husband to keep in touch of and all of that, but um, it's still very challenging. Um, so Josh and I have actually been together almost 15 years. Before moving here, the longest we'd been apart was 5 days. Um, so the way we coped was trying to maintain maintain our routine as much as possible. So we would still frequently text each other, silly cutesy things, stupid reels, memes, anything that would make each other giggle, like our Derby Easter. Um, that gets randomly sent to each other every couple of months without warning. I encourage you to do the same with your loved ones. They will also appreciate a Derby Easter. But we also actually video chatted or spoke twice a day. The 7 hour time difference between St. Louis and the Netherlands is a lot to get used to. I mean, as I was waking up, he was going to bed. When I was going to bed, he was getting off work. So it was a little tricky. Um, of course, I still missed him. I 100% did the chick thing where you snuggle with a hoodie I snuggle with a hoodie he left. Frankie did too. Um, but I would also very intentionally text or call my friends and family on a regular basis just to check in with them and let them know that I was doing okay and genuinely doing okay. When I would start to struggle a little bit, I would call my mom and let her know. So because I started doing those things, like, I never started to spiral. Um, even when I came across challenges that made me feel dumb. Um, and, the things that would make me feel dumb are just things that, moving to another country, you just don't know because no one ever taught you. Um, so, that's what really makes you feel like a foreigner. And I think it's really easy to kind of take for granted really simple things like taking out the trash. It took us a week to figure out how to throw away our garbage. So apparently, at least in Utrecht, you don't sign up for a trash service. It just sort of gets assigned to you after you register at your address. Um, and there's just underground trash compactors. They don't just open, you have to use a chip card and scan them to get them to open to throw away your trash. We were too embarrassed to ask anyone how it worked. So we just kind of watched out of our kitchen window and waited until we saw someone throwing away the trash. Um, but, um, simple things like even grocery shopping, especially when you don't know the language, can also be really, really fun. I was always, and to a large extent still am, standing in the aisles, holding up my phone, translating as I'm walking. Um, uh, by the way, Wasserzachter is fabric softener. You'd never guess it. Um, but we have not been in a hurry to learn Dutch. Our focus has really been on getting settled, and I've been focused on my business. Of course, most people do speak English, and you will encounter people that speak little to no English. As a matter of fact, just today I stopped and got a small lunch while I was waiting for my dog to get groomed. And I was eating it inside, which is a Dutch faux pas on a beautiful day. But a woman started saying something to me. I just had to smile at her, like, sorry. And she's like, oh, that's all you speak? This is all I speak of English. I'm like, okay. Um, so yeah, I personally I have not encountered anyone who had a problem with me not knowing Dutch yet. I think it helps to just smile and play cute. Seems to work for most situations, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, even simple things like mailing a package. I had to send some printer cartridges to get recycled. I had no idea how to use a post office box. So I went to a local drop spot and just asked the cashier if I could ask him a stupid question. Asked him, how do I mail this? And he just kind of laughed and pointed at a big orange bin that said Post NL on it. I said, gotcha. So, you know, anything to make you laugh is always good, especially when you're starting to feel sad. It that release of endorphins and all of that, it really does do a lot for your mental health. So, if you're starting to feel down, go to a comedy show, go get a cup of coffee, go for a walk, check out a museum, do something to change your space. Um, Basically, just get out of the house. Um, and, with that, I'm really glad that I have Frankie with me for that. We really did think about rehoming him before we moved. But we both kind of said, no, no, you're gonna need a buddy. Um, is again, being a high energy dog, he needs out a lot, and we have no backyard. So I have to take him out about 4 times a day, which is fine. Um, but he's also good for shoving a toy into my side and letting me know it's time to take a break. Um, so, um, but yeah, so doing something to get out or make you laugh or changing what you're looking at because you don't want to be stuck inside all the time. And the weather here is gorgeous. Yes, it's a little warm right now. Um, but I think what's really cool is that it's basically green all year. And I've even seen flowers blooming in the winter. Um, which, those of you from the Midwest, that's not a thing. So, um, and of course, one of the other things that I would do to keep myself happy was watch Supernatural again. But this time with Dutch subtitles. So, um, and of course, the absolute happiest thing for me was when Josh did finally get home on New Year's Day, 2.5 months after going back to the US. Um, and when I met him at Schiphol, it was of course emotional for both of us, but my plan worked. So months ago, when my mom asked me if I was going to be okay, I said yes and meant it. Of course, it hasn't been easy. I miss my husband. I miss my friends and family back in St. Louis. And some days are harder than others. But because I already knew how to cope with everything I'd never felt lonely, even though I was alone. So now we get the boring slides. Um, but just to kind of recap, when you're doing this and you're going to be on your own for a while, have a plan, know how you're going to approach meeting people and getting out. Um, get yourself a routine, even if it's something as simple as drinking a cup of tea on your deck to start the day. And of course, get outside. This is a beautiful country. It's great weather. It does rain, but it doesn't rain as much as people think it does. Um, be honest, you know, most importantly, be honest with yourself about how you're feeling because you're not going to have, at least initially, that support system there to say, hey, you're not doing well. So you have to be honest with yourself about it. Stay connected with the people who do care about you, even if you're 7 hours, 10 hours apart. Find your supernatural or just watch Supernatural and ask stupid questions. That's the best way to learn is just ask. Um, ChatGPT may have some answers, but she's not gonna know it all. Um, so I mean that's really it. I really thank you all for listening to me talk for a while. Um, of course, if you are struggling, if you know someone who's struggling, there are a lot of resources here too to help with mental health. Not only from the government, but there are also a lot of independent people who are not only in this community that Julie has built, but across the expat and immigrant community. Um, they do have a suicide prevention line in the Netherlands. It is 113. Um, outside of that, this is a short list of therapists, psychiatrists, and counselors who have given me permission to have their information up here. Um, this information will get posted with the video and YouTube later. Um, but these are just a few people who are uh, ready and willing to help you through whatever you're going through. That's it.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm just going to share a few more things. I want to share Andrea's LinkedIn because I know she'll be happy to connect to you and, of course, myself if you haven't already. I just want to share a few more things and then we'll get into the Q&A and anything we can do to help you. We're here to help however we can. So let me screen. Everything's ground to a halt. Here we go. Thank you for being so open and sharing such a personal story, Andrea. I think the thing is, I'm happy to share lots of stories about myself and other people that have gone through some challenges here. But what I will say is the most powerful thing you can ever do is ask for help. And it feels vulnerable, but once you've made a few connections, people really will help you. That is so true. So please, whatever you think and you're not sure whether it could be your neighbour and you've just moved in, or somebody that you haven't had quite a deep conversation with, you just don't know that. If you don't ask, you'll never know. But please do ask somebody, and do reach out. So I just want to share a little bit about my story. So I'm British, as you can probably tell by the accent. So my move was not as involved as you guys move. You guys are moving such a long distance and obviously more different complications than I had. So I moved here almost 8 years ago. It was actually on my birthday. We didn't celebrate that day because it was pretty hectic. And we ended up staying in a hotel and it rained as well. It was August and it rained. And I moved here to support my husband's career. My contract, I was working in a bank and my contract had finished. So I was like, what the hey, let's have a midlife crisis. I've got a red shiny car. We don't have kids, but apart from a four-legged dog. So yeah, why not? Because if we didn't like it, we could go back. And, I think that's the thing. People use the word brave. I don't know whether brave is the right thing, but, I didn't really want to look back on my life and think, could have done that, could have done this, could have done whatever. There is no shame of trying something and it doesn't work. There are some people on the DAFT Visa that go back for various reasons. Somebody's been in touch with me recently and said, it's family things. Andrew's a bit younger than me, but I'm in my early 50s. So, I've got to think about my family and a lot of people in that sort of sandwich era as well, where they've got grown-up kids that have left, so they think, I can do my own thing, and they've got to think about parents as well. So we've all got our own challenges, and and sometimes it's just not for you. So when I came here, I didn't really have a plan of what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't necessarily want to go into banking because I thought that'd be too easy. And I thought I've already moved countries, so as far as I'm concerned, you've evolved once, so keep going. I went into business with somebody I met through Facebook. She lived in my city, and we were two ZZ payers together. So we created a VOF, a partnership. And we did that for 2.5 years. But I found out about networking during COVID. I was always the person front of house, meeting people, connecting with people, and thought, I just want to do this. And as a sort of joke, but I'm serious, you will not find an Amazon van delivering anything to my house. If it is, it's lost. I'm all about supporting other small businesses. I love to hear people's passion and their story, and anything I can do to support somebody, I will. But the reason behind the network was, even though I worked with somebody who was already here, she hadn't really built much of a network. Also, a native English speaker, not a Dutch speaker, and hadn't really navigated her way around things. So I really understand the realities of starting over, starting in a new country. I was here all through COVID as well, so that was interesting times. It feels like a long time ago now, and did sort of feel a little bit in a bubble but we manage. But again, as Andrea said, Facebook groups super helpful. And that's actually how I came up with my business name, with the people saying, "Hey, hive mind." So yeah, so what I do now is I support international entrepreneurs navigating business and life to a point, and the silly questions, because I've been through it. I was just putting the chat. I went to my local international centre the first week I was here. I was like, how do I recycle? This is like ingrained in me. So I need to go find where and put my glass and my paper because I don't understand. We had one of the card chip card things, but yeah, you just end up watching people in supermarkets when they're doing things and thinking, what are they doing? That's how you figure things out. But just to let you know that the whole thing about asking for help, hanging out in communities, is you don't have to keep researching. This is why we're running webinars like this. You know, we can help and support you with the things we know. And like I mentioned at the beginning, the things we don't know, we probably have some trusted contacts for you as well. Overthinking your move, you know, it's a big move. It is a really big thing for you. So, you know, anything we can do to support you, you know, even I had something recently where I was looking at something in Groningen, which is a city about 2 hours north from where I live. And somebody said to me, "Oh, I'll just go there and I'll take a video." No, I didn't ask, but she offered. And you'll be surprised if you ask somebody, you know, what can they say? They don't say no. They might actually say yes. So don't stay stuck. Don't stay researching or hanging out with AI. Do ask a human, and don't try and do it all on your own, because there are people that've been there before. So I just want to share a little bit about my community, and I'll share some links in a minute. So first off, I've got a Facebook group, and it's for business owners here in the Netherlands. There's 2,400 of us in the group, and also people moving on the DAFT Visa. We support each other. Some people found their very first client through that group. I facilitate webinars once a month. And these are generally new business owners. They might be trying to find their first client. I know some people that, you know, did manage to do that through the Facebook group. Once a week, you can share about your business, you can ask a question any day of the week. And it's just a great way to, you know, figure out. I've had people get on a train from Maastricht up to Amsterdam, so that's a good 2 hours, might be even longer, just to go hang out with another business owner. And now you're connected with me and Andrea, you can tap into our connections. I've got over 6,000 connections on LinkedIn. I don't just accept anybody. And I don't know them all personally, but definitely curate my contacts. I can introduce you to the right experts. And I will be honest, if I don't know that person, I will let you know. But I'll be thinking about you when I meet that person. And my community's consistent environment. You know, we don't disappear. We're here all summer, actually, and quite a few business owners are saying they're not going anywhere this summer. So we stay in touch all through the summer, and we do check in with each other. So I'm the founder of Buzz Business Networking. I've also spoken to over 400 business owners over the last 4 years, to find out where they're stuck and what that is, and how we can move forward. So I've got quite a few tools in my toolkit that can help you, and I'm happy to have a half an hour call. And that's it from me. By all means, scan that QR code, but we're going to go into Q&A now. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to start recording.